We're still back! We're still back, we never left. Let's just get into it. Next up, we have the blood-soaked berserker. The berserker doesn't give a shit if you attack him, because he knows you'll die first anyway. See? This is yet another build that likes to bar armor its way through attacks, and use Malenia's Great Rune to compensate for the lost health. What makes this setup good for this compared to other setups is the unique weapon art that our weapon has. It has good hyper armor and leaves this vacuum after activation, which does some lingering damage. Each tick of that damage will work with Malenia's Great Rune, giving us a decent chunk of health back. Now let's break this down. Our weapon's choice is the Red Bear's Claw, a very fast and agile weapon that can have you zip around the arena as much as you wish. This is especially true if you use its feint attack, which covers a lot of distance. Then the attack you do afterwards will also cover a lot of distance, giving you a decent amount of control on the spacing of a fight. But the reason we're actually using this is obviously the weapon art. It has you do this 3 attack combo that just shred into your enemies, dealing a lot of damage and bleed build up. There's a lot to love here already, but what makes it really special is the lingering hitbox it leaves after every attack. This has good stagger potential with small enemies, but more importantly, it synergizes with Malenia's Great Rune, because every tick of damage will recover us a little bit of health, and these can add up very quickly. This straight up makes you unkillable if you know what you're doing. In our offhand, we have the Clawmark seal, because this is a strength belt, and this seal, just like our weapon, scales with strength, making it a natural fit. We use it to cast Golden Vow and Black Flame Protection for more defense. Defense is generally very important for any build that uses Malenia's Great Rune, because it means that we lose less health when we get hit, meaning that we need to recover less health. This seal also boosts Bestia incantations, which do fit the theme very well, so feel free to throw rocks at people to your heart's content. You should also cast Bestial Vitality for some passive healing. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Roar of Regalia. This is a very nice AoE spell that gets a lot of range and is also buffed by our helmet. Here's a fun fact, the difference between charging this and not charging it is only 1 frame, so you should always charge it. For talismans, we have the 2 consecutive attack talismans, the Shard of Alexander for more weapon art damage, and the Dragon Crest Great Shield for more physical defense. And for the physic, we have the Thorny Crag tier for more damage with consecutive attacks, and the Opaline Heart tier for more defense. For the look, we have a certified classic, the Rakshasa armor with the Belt of Ralva. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We get our cool damage bonuses, and 51 boys without at all compromising on the looks, because we really do look amazing here. I want you to join my Discord server. When I announced that I would be making a Discord server last time, I didn't expect anyone to join, but surprisingly they did. And you should too. You know, I always had people in the comments trying to share their builds with me. And some of these are pretty cool, but honestly, text looks very dull, and I don't always have time to replicate these builds in the game to see how they actually are. But now you can show me how your builds look and play like on the Discord, and even have other members react to them. I might even make a video about it, if we get enough submissions, that is. Join the Discord now, link in the description, and see you there! Next up, we have the Rageful Samurai. The samurai announces his name before each battle, just like his ancestors intended. This is actually canon, by the way. The idea of this build is to use the special heavy attack animations that spears get from the Braggart's Roar Ashes of War. If you don't know, some of the different weapon classes get different heavy attack movesets from the Roar Ashes of War. Most weapons get the default running charged attack that you're definitely familiar with, but pole arms get this jumping thrust instead. This attack is very powerful and staggers small enemies in your way. Our Ash of War of choice is Braggart's Roar, which is a very well-rounded weapon buff. It gives us a 10% increase in damage, but also a 10% increase in all damage negation, and even a buff to our stamina regeneration. These buffs really come in handy when using this attack, because it's not exactly the fastest attack in the game, so you might get hit while doing it. It also consumes a very large amount of stamina, so stamina regeneration is very good for this. Our weapon of choice is the Cross Naginata. This has one of the most fun to use two-handed light attack movesets in the game, but it's not really why we're using it. We're using it because it gets passive bleed, and that means that if we infuse it with a cult, we still have bleed on the weapon. This also adds arcane scaling, meaning that we get even more bleed on this weapon. So we're in this middle ground where we get less bleed than the bleed infusion, but way more physical damage. This is important because we want to take full advantage of the piercing damage of this weapon, and piercing damage only applies to physical damage. There's another reason to do this, and that is that our arcane investment lets us have 335 incantation scaling with the Dragon Communion seal, and that means that we can get very good damage from the incantations that we have access to, including all dragon incantations, AoE spells like Burn No Flame and Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike, and even long-range options like Lightning Spear or Giant's Flame Take Thee. We also cast Golden Vow and Black Flame Protection for more damage and defense. Also in my offhand, I keep a cold-infused Uchigatana with Chilling Mist on it. This Ash will usually apply Frostbite to a boss with just one hit or two, and enemies with Frostbite take more damage, so this is a powerful debuffing tool. For talismans, we have the Axe Talisman, the Roar Medallion, and the Two-Handed Sword Talisman. All of these buff our charged heavy attack, although the Roaring Medallion buffs Dragon Breath spells too, so feel free to take advantage of that. Finally, we have the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, for a 20% damage buff when we bleed an enemy. For the physic, we have the Spiked Crag tier, which also buffs our charged heavy attacks, and the Opaline Heart tier for more defense. For the look, we have the Ronin's armor, the Okina mask, Theoliar's trousers, and the Scaled gauntlets. It took me a while to come up with this one, but I do like it a lot. Up next, we have the Crow Assassin. This belt makes use of one of my favorite DLC weapons, that being the Claws of Night. We use it to deal high DPS from up close or from a distance, but we're also using it to recover tons of health from a distance, using Malenia's Great Rune. The Claws of Night are a Smith script weapon, meaning that we can actually throw them with our heavy attacks. Running heavies and jump heavies also throw our weapon, but these attacks don't deal much damage at all. But they get good range, and so you can use them to keep up the pressure on a boss if they decide to disengage. What really makes these attacks cool though, is the interaction they have with Malenia's Great Rune. See, you're actually throwing a bunch of knives when you're using these attacks, and each one of them is a separate projectile that can heal us with the rune. This makes this one of the best weapons to use with Malenia's Great Rune. You get lots of healing very quickly, and you can get it from a relatively safe distance. Also, fun fact, this is the only claw weapon to get a feint attack, because it shares this one with the Smith script dagger. Not the most useful thing, but it's worth pointing out. The weapon art on this has you throw many of these claws at once, and it has deceptively high range. It's very easily spammable, it does good damage and stance damage, and does very decent bleed buildup. This should be your bread and butter, and you should always use this over the heavy attacks if you have access to it. Though this doesn't proc the consecutive attack buffs that quickly, and we are using those. So you should mix in some light attacks to empower your next few weapon arts. Now this is Dex build, and that means it doesn't benefit from having points in faith as much as strength and arcane builds do, so I decided to keep it simple with no spells. Instead, we use Boiled Crab for more defense. Because, as you might remember, defense is very important to a build that uses Malenia's Great Rune. Because if we take less damage, then we have to heal less health. If you ever feel like you need more power, then slap Golden Vow on the dagger, and just use that before a fight, and you should be good to go. For talismans, we have the Shard of Alexander for more weapon art damage, the Dragon Crest Great Shield talisman for more physical damage negation, the Lord of Blood's Exaltation for more damage when we beat an enemy, and the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia for more damage with consecutive attacks. And for the physic, we have the Opaline Heart tier for more damage negation, and the Thorny Crag tier for more damage with consecutive attacks. For the look, we have the Skeletal Mask, the Raptor's Black Feathers, the Dryleaf Arm Wraps, and the War Sergeant Trousers. This is probably the single only build out there that uses this chest piece for looks alone, and not just for some jumping attack build. Hey Tarnished! This was the 8th video in this series. You can find older videos in the description below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Special thanks to my 2 members, and see you next week!